Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And I'm going to continue on with my Luis Bunuel series today. I had hoped to do a video on Last Summer, a film from 1969 that had been lost and recently in the last year or two been found and restored, and a Blu-ray edition recently released, but I haven't gotten it yet. It's been delayed a couple times, and Amazon yesterday sent me a notice that it will be another 10-15 days before I receive that movie, which I'm very anxious to see and talk about. So instead, I'll continue on with my Bunuel series, and I'll go deep within the confines of his Mexican filmography with The Great Madcap, El Gran Calavera. And this is Bunuel's second film in Mexico, a very important film for him, and I'll get to that in a minute, but certainly one that would be seen as a minor film by a great director. And there's maybe three other films in Bunuel's Mexican filmography that could be seen to be very minor. And I thought of combining them together because, you know, I would imagine everybody I'm talking to today, maybe one or two may have actually seen The Great Madcap or those other three films. But I'm going to keep to it, mostly because that was my original ambition, but also because this is a very, very funny movie. This is like a 1930 screwball comedy. Now it is, before I forget, it is streaming on YouTube. It's the only place I could find it. I'm not sure whether there was a physical release at all with English subtitles. There's two versions on YouTube. One does not have subtitles, one does have subtitles. And in the description box below, I will give a link to The Great Madcap with subtitles. So as I say, it strikes me as a 1930 screwball comedy. And Bunuel was very fond of Hollywood slapstick comedy in the silent era. He loved the Keystone Cops. There's a bit of an element of the Keystone Cops in the latter part of The Great Madcap. He especially liked Buster Keaton. He thought Buster Keaton was very much in line in being a surrealist. And his films were coming out at the same time that the surrealist movement was flourishing in Paris. And you might say that Bunuel is very attracted to Keaton's surreal kind of comedy, where Keaton is a deadpan comedy. And you might say all throughout Bunuel's career, there's lots of humor. Even in Tristana, my last video was on Tristana, there's comedy there. The thing is about Bunuel, he is a deadpan director, especially as far as comedy goes. He doesn't emphasize it. You can just watch a situation and all of a sudden it will strike you funny. So The Great Madcap was a very funny film, a big success for Bunuel. His second film, he's trying to get into the Mexican film industry, establishing himself as a working director. He had never really made a feature film before. Lodged Gore was less than an hour, and then he languished for another 15, 16 years, stopping and starting, trying to get projects going in Hollywood, which he was unable to do. And it's funny because this film, The Great Madcap, could have been made in Hollywood in the 1930s. In fact, the daughter in The Great Madcap, I could see being played by Jean Arthur or Carol Lombard. And all the situations are very similar to screwball comedy. Easy Living is one, or one of the films that might be similar. And so Hollywood may have missed the boat on Bunuel because he was such an efficient director. He always brought his films in on budget. He didn't take a lot of time to take multiple takes. He did do multiple takes for the most part. On normal shots, it would be one take. Um, but then he would have, Bunuel would have had to have the Hollywood gloss on a screwball comedy like The Great Madcap, which is made on a low budget, so he would have more money or more technical skill. But every Hollywood studio, especially in the 1930s, had its own look. And I think Bunuel would have struggled with that sort of glossiness. So the movie is important because his previous film was a flop. Grand Casino was called, and but the producers were impressed with his style because he was like, even though he never made a feature film before, he knew what he was doing. He knew how to direct the film, get it done quickly, under budget, and there was a very low budget for the Great Madcap. So after the failure of Grand Casino, the producer saw this potential in Bunuel that he would be able to make commercially successful films, and he would be able to make them on budget and even under budget. So he said, well, what kind of film do you have anything you're working on? Bunuel was working on Los Olvidados, which is his film about juvenile delinquency. And the producer said, oh, okay, we'll make that, but I have this comedy here, and if you make this comedy for me, then I guarantee you I'll let you make Los Olvidados, and which he did, and with very little interference from that producer, and so The Great Madcap was a big hit. It played in Spain, it played in Portugal, it played all through Spanish-speaking America, so he got to make his, so this is the movie that really solidified that Bunuel could deliver the goods and have a commercial hit every once in a while, at least. Most of his films were not commercial successes, especially Los Olvidados, which was an international critical success. Didn't make any money in Mexico, but Bunuel would win in his third film. He would win the Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival. And Bunuel, as a studio film director, he already had experience there, and this is a not much discussed episode in his biographies and the people who talk about Bunuel in the 1930s. He had the idea. He had spent some time in Hollywood, a year or two maybe, and he was much impressed by the technical skill that Hollywood studios had and how all the people who worked on the film, they were expert in what they were doing and being able to create movies quickly, and that would be popular with the public. Bunuel always wanted to be popular with the public. He wasn't making films for film festivals. He wanted to make commercial hits. He wanted to engage with an audience and get his ideas across to an audience. So in the 1930s, he hooked up with a producer who wanted to build a studio in Spain, which Bunuel said, yes, let's do it. And Bunuel took charge of everything. They made 4 films. All came in under budget, their minuscule budget. But Bunuel was doing almost everything, the editing, the sound. He directed the films, most of them. And a part of one, and I think all 3 of the others from the evidence, the assistant director would take the credit. So Bunuel's name was never on these films, but there were films that he made himself. They were totally commercial films, and they were starting to do very well because Spain didn't have a film industry. So then the Spanish Civil War started, and then they had to close down the studio and leave. But obviously, when he came to Mexico, the producers were very impressed because his reputation as some surrealist avant-garde director was belied by the kind of work he was doing for these producers. So, and Bunuel was a gag writer too, so when he was in Hollywood, he would write gags and try to sell them. And he sold some gags to Charlie Chaplin, who he knew pretty well. So the story of The Great Madcap involves the rich and the poor. We see the opening shot is terrific. The opening shot is set in we don't know where we are. We see a bunch of men entangled with each other, sleeping, all on top of each other. And then the man at the rear back, he gets an itch, but he doesn't know where to scratch because of all the legs. And then he wakes everybody up. Then the camera pulls back and we see we're in a jail cell, and these are men that have been put in for drunkenness, including our hero, Ramiro, played by Fernando Soler. He's actually a millionaire, so he's being bailed out, and he has become a drunkard, and he's been bailed out quite a few times before. The reason he's drinking is his wife has died, and when sober, he cannot stand the thought of enduring the memory of his beloved wife. So he's drunk all the time, and he has a daughter who's getting ready to get married, a son, a wastrel son who just dropped out of college, a brother and a sister who do absolutely nothing. He is a millionaire, but he's neglecting his business. The money is dwindling away. He doesn't care. All he wants to do is get drunk, and so his family mooches on him, and they take tremendous advantage of him. Buy me a new Cadillac. Yes, sir. The brother and the sister just buy anything they want, and and when he's drunk, he's in a good mood. Yeah, have it. You can have anything you like. But the money is dwindling away, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. He has to reform. He does have another brother who is we learn is a psychiatrist, and he sets up this elaborate scam where because Ramiro he's deathly ill, but he recovers. When he wakes up, he's in a rundown apartment, and his family is there, and they convince him that they have lost all their money. He has lost all his money, and this is what they have to live for. And then he learns differently that they're playing a joke. They're playing a practical joke on him to try to get him to straighten up, and then he plays a practical joke on them, and where he has his second in command of his company come and tell him, well, it's true, all the money is gone. So they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do anything, but they learn, and whether it's doing wash for the neighborhood, or the sister becomes a good cook. The brother, in a very funny way, he doesn't know how to do anything, but he's doing carpentry. He's repairing chairs, and as the weeks go by, they start to feel good about themselves and what they're doing, that there's value in work. So there's romances here. No matter how drunk Ramiro is, he knows that the man that is going to marry his daughter. Of course, the marriage is off now because in a hilarious engagement party, Ramiro just tears up the whole party in his drunken hallucinations. But he knows this man's no good for him. So we get a rather sentimentalized view. It's hard to combine sentiment with Bunuel. A sentimentalized view of the value of work, which Bunuel himself believed in, but of the poverty or not having the things that his family was used to. So and there's one incidents after another where, in fact, when funds are restored, they're all reformed. The son's going to go back to school. The daughter's going to get married again. The carpentry, his brother just begins to love carpentry. His sister begins to love cooking. They have a useful existence. And Bunuel doesn't take all this very seriously. It's all in an attempt to gain comedy. So the situations themselves, there's some good gags in the movie, but the situations themselves are very funny indeed. And then we get an ending. We get the runaway bride ending. That harkens back to It Happened One Night. I also thought of The Graduate. The ending is very similar to The Graduate. And as I say, it was a big hit. It's not one of the greatest comedies of all time, but it's so well made. What was astonishing to me about Buñuel is what a great director he was in keeping the flow going. Which is one reason I think he might have succeeded in Hollywood, because there was this economy of expression, which often is used for Hollywood studio directors. You know, they didn't mess around. They got it done, and at least in the Great Madcap, Buñuel gets it done here. And again, as I say, you might have quite a few laughs if you are brave enough to get through it, the print on YouTube. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.